All right, so here we are in Dina, and just like any other video editing app, there is a timeline on the bottom. Because there is audio associated with this timeline, we've got a waveform of our audio that's displayed over the track that was recorded with our video. And looking at that, we can see that there's a big space about the 2-minute mark where I must have made a mistake, and that's something that can be cut out. We're going to get to that in a second, but first let's talk through some of the basic elements of this editor interface. So above that timeline with the video, there's a couple of controls, including a play button, which we can click or press the spacebar. That will start the video playing. There's a button on the right, which will jump to the last frame in the video, and a button on the left that will jump to the first frame. As the video plays, the playhead moves. That's that vertical bar with the little teardrop icon at the top. And we can click on a spot in the timeline to move the playhead to that point, and the video preview will show what is actually on screen at that specific point in the video. So if we move the playhead right about here after the audio stops, we can then click another tool in this toolbar, which is the scissors icon, and that will split the clip right here. We can also use the keyboard shortcut Shift+Command+S. That now creates 2 clips, one to the left of the mark that we made and one to the right. Since I want to delete all of this dead space in the middle, I'm going to move the scissors icon to another point in the video right before the audio picks up again, and click the mouse button to split the playhead there as well. This results in 3 separate clips on the timeline, the one on the left, the one in the middle, and the one on the right. There's an indication of the time of each one of these clips. The one on the left is 1 minute and 54 seconds. The one on the right is 2 minutes and 33 seconds. The one in the middle is the 20 seconds of dead air that I want to delete. So now let's click the scissors icon again to turn the split clip feature off. Select that clip in the middle and hit the delete key. That clip is removed, and what we're left with is the left part of the clip and the right part of the clip without the dead space in the middle. So now we've just tightened up our video quite a bit. If we click on the clip, we get some settings that are associated with that clip, including the speed and the volume of the audio during that clip. And I'm going to put the playhead right here in between these 2 clips. Now there's a slider on that play bar as well. This is the zoom for the timeline view. Right now it's zoomed all the way out, which means that the entire timeline for the entire clip is viewable from left to right. There's nothing to the left or right of what is displayed on that timeline view. But if we zoom in, you can see that the waveform gets more spread out, and now we have more granular control over the specific elements in the timeline view. So if you want to make a very precise cut in your timeline, the zoom can be very handy for that. There's also a button over on the left for annotations. And this is one of the things that I really like about Dina. In addition to just walking through the screencast, you can annotate it so you can call out specific elements. So for example, let's say we want to draw attention to this due date at the top of this particular Obsidian note. We can click the arrow button and then draw an arrow from right to left to create an arrow that's pointing right at that specific property. As we create the arrow, we have a bunch of options that are displayed on the right next to the video preview. We can select the color. Let's make this red. We can change the opacity and the stroke. I want this to be wider, so let's bump this up to about 8. And we can change the size of the head of the arrow. Let's bump this up to about 27. Now we can flip the direction of the arrow, but I actually don't want to do that. I want this to point at the specific property. There's also 2 different types of transitions we can use with this, fade or draw. At this point in the video, the arrow has already been drawn, but if we play it from here by hitting the spacebar, we can see what this transition would look like when the arrow fades out at the end. So there's not a whole lot of options that you can do with these transitions, but there's enough to make your video visually interesting. Okay, there are other types of annotations that we can use. This one right here is a rectangle, so we can draw a rectangle around a specific thing that we want to call out. Let's do it right here on this section for automatic updates. Okay, so that creates this rectangle. Again, we have rectangle settings where we can select the color. Let's make it red again. The opacity, the stroke width, let's make it about 10. The corner radius, we can fill the rectangle if we want, but since I want to see what's underneath this rectangle, I'm going to leave that off. And again, there are a couple of transition effects, fade and expand. Now you can see these annotations have actually created two separate tracks on my timeline view below the video view. So let's move the playhead to the beginning of this annotation on the timeline, hit the spacebar, and as the video plays, we can see that rectangle expand to highlight the area of the video that we want to call out. You can also highlight things. So let's click the highlight button right here, and then we can hold and drag to highlight a specific section of our video. So let's highlight this particular plugin, Actions URI by Carlo Zotman. And again, we've got options for color, opacity, stroke, and transition where we can fade or draw from left to right or right to left. There's one additional type of annotation here, which is a callout. Let's click the callout button. This allows you to create a callout box next to something that you want to call out on screen. So here's the box. Now, once we create the callout, again, we've got settings over here on the right. To edit the text for the callout, you actually don't click the text in the box itself, but you go to the text setting in this sidebar and change the text here. So let's change this from "this changes everything" to "this is a great plugin for automation." Okay, so there's our new text. We can change the alignment of the text. We can change the text color. We can change the font. I'm going to bump this up from 19 to 24. You can see when I let go of 24, it actually jumps the playhead up until that point in the timeline. So let's actually go back here to where the playhead is actually positioned. All right, there's a couple other settings here. We can change the background color of the callout, the corner radius, the shadow, and the pointer location. The pointer location is handy because this kind of shows where the callout is originating from. So right now, this callout is coming from the bottom left, but it's referring to the plugin listing on the bottom right. So let's change this to bottom right, and now that is the pointy end of the callout, which indicates visually this is what the callout is referring to. Now this looks kind of sloppy, but this is a very quick demo of the different tools that you can use to annotate your video. If you're trying to record a quick explainer video for someone, these can be very handy in communicating what you want them to understand. Now I'm actually going to clean this up, so let's close the annotations bar by clicking the X over here, and I'm going to go to these individual elements in my timeline and delete these. So I'll click the first annotation here, hit the delete key, same with the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. One other thing we can do in this editor view is add zooms. The way to do this is to go to the line below the video and click to add a zoom. So let's add a zoom right here. Okay, so now here is our zoom. We can configure how big this zoom is. And if we click on the zoom, we'll see the zoom settings. Now, right now, this is an auto zoom, which means that it's basically going to follow my mouse cursor. Let's go back to the beginning of this zoom, hit the space bar to see what this looks like. All right, so as you can see, it follows the mouse, but if we wanted to have a manual zoom and zoom in on a specific element in the screen, we can do that too by clicking the manual button right here. This gives us a preview of what is on our screen, and we can just drag this dot to the place that we want the zoom to be. Go back to the beginning, hit the space bar. Okay, and now it's anchored to that specific spot in the zoom itself. So zooms are very handy for drawing attention to a specific thing on the video. Now let's delete this zoom from the timeline by selecting it and hitting the delete key. Okay, so now we've got a nice, clean timeline to work with. Let's look at some of the other settings here that apply to the entire video clip.